Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 10. Thank you so much for your patience. I really appreciate the subscribers and appreciate all of the feedback I'm getting. I'm hopeful that this podcast is validating and showing people over and over again that, the abusers want to silence us. And really, what we need to do is elevate this conversation over and over and over again. Our children are significantly harmed by abusive people in their lives. Children do not need two parents. They need one healthy, loving, protective parent. And as we've already talked about in previous episodes, the idea about their attachment to you is so vital, is so vital. And so hopefully some of the strategies you've been learning and some of the things you're already doing every single day in your house, I know you're all working. I always say this is the hardest work there is. Hopefully everything you're doing is creating that protective space for them, giving them the gift of perspective, which is just so vital to their healthy brain development. So you guys know I'm a protective parenting coach. I'm a therapist. I worked for child welfare. Of course, I'm a protective mom and I get it. I'm a survivor. I get it. And so our best strategy is to show up in a way that is gentle with our children, even when they're volatile, which is so, so very hard. So for episode 10, I'm going to read my testimony that I gave to the Massachusetts State Legislature regarding codifying coercive control in their state. It's in the voice of a child. And I did this because I really think the biggest gap is understanding that children who live in these family situations where there is an abusive parent are not safe, even if there's never been physical violence. And it's not because of the protective parent. The protective parent is trapped and there's not too much that they can do. And so oftentimes society doesn't support them. I did Maryland coercive control legislation testimony on Thursday this week and really tried to implore with them that this is entrapment. It's a psychological warfare. Someone has intended to do this harm, and they are doing this harm on everyone in the family system. So we cannot hold protective parents accountable for any of these abuses. The horrifying stories that I hear from colleagues who are doing expert witness testimony where a perpetrator has been harming a victim over and over again, and that victim retaliates and then is held to account when it's not actually, again, as we've talked about, it's not reactive abuse. It's not. It's self-defense. When I am trapped over and over and over again, that is called self-defense. So I wanted to let you know episode 11 will be coming out, I promise, in 2 weeks, and it's all about grief and loss. Most importantly, I'm hoping you can help me. I am looking for adults, children who have survived living in a coercively controlling environment with an abuser. I am looking for them to speak out about what was going on in their brains and their bodies so that we can really elevate the conversation about, as One Mom's Battle states, the children are coming. This includes children who have been in reunification camps, forced into time with someone they are not feeling safe with, which is just so extremely harmful. This includes children who are forced into repair therapy with an abuser. I hear of this happening over and over and over again. It is just absolutely heartbreaking that we live in a system where there might be therapists, attorneys, guardian ad litems, whatever your state calls them, minor counsel. There's a variety of names that are used, that these custody evaluators are forcing children into time with an abusive parent that they fear. So there's different ways around that. I mean, if you're a parent who this has happened to you and you are the protective parent, I see you and I hear you, but forcing children into therapy in that particular circumstance is probably not in their best interest. We know that that is a forcing of them feeling something that they are not comfortable with. And so we can work around that. There's ways to work around that with talented, educated therapists who understand coercive control and understand that a child may be aligned with an abuser because that feels quote unquote safest. So that actually is exactly what my clinician training is for. If you're a therapist listening to this or you have a therapist, I have another another training coming up in May. It's 14 hours, 14 CEs for therapists, so that this way they really understand all of these nuances of coercive control and understand how a child is traumatized and forced into some circumstances with abusers, sometimes aligning with abusers. This is what happens. Sometimes not wanting to go at all because they see it all clearly and they're being forced. Really heartbreaking. So again, if you know anyone who is an adult child who has survived these circumstances, please have them reach out to me at admin@drcocciola.com. Otherwise, I'm going to read this testimony. I am reading it to you because I feel like it's really a good picture. It's a snapshot of what children are experiencing in these family systems. And it is, again, never the protective parent's fault. In the voice of a child, and research affirms, growing up in a home with a coercive controller has significantly impacted my developing brain. I learned early on that I must regulate my behaviors, like the protective parent has, in order to support creating equilibrium in the home. Walking on eggshells is a part of my life. No one really notices. There is abuse by the coercive controller because the abuse is all too often insidious and nuanced. Physical violence does not have to be the defining characteristic of abuse. As a matter of fact, it often is not until it is. This regulation of my behaviors has caused a hypervigilance in me. It is creating a neurological response in my brain. It may cause me to be easily stressed, dysregulated, to have attention difficulties, obsessive behaviors, anxiety, and of course, depression. All too often, I may exhibit neurodivergent behaviors when actually it's my trauma. Sadly, this coping that I learned early on in life may lead me to relationships with controlling people and/or to be controlling in order to feel safe. When I cannot feel safe in my own home, then self-worth is diminished. I devalue myself. My ability to adapt to challenging situations is compromised. I'm sure you can understand. The developing brain is just that, developing. This is what, of course, the coercive controller wants. If I am compromised, I will more readily align with a coercive controller and may even participate in some of the behaviors being modeled for me. Aligning often feels safer. My protective parent, stripped of her autonomy, may be unable to advocate for herself. Of course, when systems do not support her, she remains trapped. I quickly learned in this family system there is one parent with more power in the home. I learned that it may be safer to align with the more powerful parent. The grooming process similar to that of a sexual predator for both me and my protective parent. Sometimes the coercive controller is a child sexual predator. In either case, the betrayal, significant, the foundation of trust annihilated. I have one parent trying to protect me, but unable to, and another parent that if I do not cooperate, I may receive the same treatment my protective parent has. It is so frightening, yet oftentimes I do not even know that fear is what I am feeling. Oftentimes I've been made to believe that the protective parent is not protective at all. Or just as bad, I am forced into custodial time with the abusive parent and my protective parent isn't able to protect me. I am untethered. Yet as a child, I am supposed to be tethered to an anchor of safety with a protective parent. I am navigating the stormy seas of a coercive controller. Make no mistake, this has been the plan since day one. All along, the coercive controller has been ensuring that they have power over me and power over this family system. All so that if my protective parent was ever inclined to escape, ever felt safe enough to do so, I could readily be weaponized. In the rare event my protective parent feels supported enough to escape, I may likely become the soldier for the coercive controller and treat her as the enemy the abusive parent sees her as. The protective parent, a trauma victim herself, may feel dysregulated and overwhelmed in much the same way that I do. Of course, this is exactly what the abusive parent hopes for, that the protective parent will react to me, and then, in that, the plan of the maliciously fracturing of the attachment will be solidified. Research affirms that the trauma of hidden abuse is that much more complex. If you cannot see it, the abuse supposedly didn't happen. How do I, a child, explain to anyone that my brain lives in reptilian mode, survival mode, all too frequently? When gaslighting, manipulation, diminishing of autonomy are consistent and repetitive in the family system, then it makes sense that the child's experiences are traumatic. Children that are living in these systems truly understand that they are an object, fulfilling the needs of the coercive controller, the narcissistic abuser, the love entirely conditional. But being authentic is something every single child needs to have for healthy development. In this home, I cannot be authentic. It's unfortunate, since unconditional love and the ability to be authentic are a primal need for healthy attachment to occur, a primal need of all children. I know I am not loved in this way, and I know that I cannot be myself. I must appease the coercive controller in order to retain as much equilibrium as possible in the home and in my relationship with this abusive person. Again, I may not even see them as abusive. My ability to securely attach significantly fractured due to no fault of the protective parent. The use of power and control over me, coercive control, harms me and harms my ability to feel safe. In that I am a trauma victim, much like my protective parent. This intergenerational trauma can be prevented, but only if the systems recognize the abuse of my protective parent and my own abuse, an unacknowledged child abuse. I must be able to attach in a secure way, and the malicious fracturing of attachment that this abusive parent does must be stopped. So that's my testimony in the voice of a child. I really hope that we can get systems to recognize that even when abuse is covert, and of course, coercive control isn't always covert, we know that it actually leads to more physically violent behaviors when coercive control is the foundation of the abuse. And frankly, it's the foundation of all abuse, as we've talked about in previous podcasts. We need the systems to recognize that this intergenerational trauma can be stalled, it can be prevented if we put children in the custodial arms and the loving arms of their protective parent, and we supervise and or limit contact with an abusive parent. If that parent has been abusive at all in any way, covertly or overtly, with a protective parent, they are not safe for our children. So I thank you so much for listening. Please remember to subscribe and share, and I look forward to seeing you in episode 11. Episode 11, all about grief and loss that we are all carrying because of these traumatizing experiences. Bye, everyone.